On today's video, I'm gonna show you why foreclosure leads are not the thing that you should be looking at right now. Despite all the headlines that are out there, foreclosure leads are not going to be the place where you get a ton of motivated seller opportunities. If we haven't met, my name is Bill Allen. I am a military pilot turned full-time real estate investor and a mentor for other real estate investors, and I absolutely love this stuff. I did a video a few weeks ago about a lot of the headlines that are going on in the news right now. And what I want you to do on this channel is learn how to think for yourself. I want to teach you how to do that. And today I'm going to talk about foreclosures. When the pandemic hit and the market started coming back, what I thought was going to happen is we were going to have this soar in foreclosures eventually. And all this kind of pent up missed payments and things like that, we're going to catch up to these folks. What I've seen is a lot of headlines recently about that. And I want you to think about this. I want you to really look, and today I'm going to show you the data about why this is actually not the place that you should be spending a ton of time. Should you still be working a few of the foreclosure leads? Maybe. But right here, recently I saw an article, it was April 26, 2022, and it says foreclosures surge 181% to highest levels since March 2020. So I think we can all remember March 2020 was a time where we went into this pandemic and everything started happening, right? The world kind of started slowing down and real estate had this 3-month period where it was kind of like paused almost. And we were wondering what was going to happen. Everybody's talking about the sky's falling and all this stuff. Real estate's going to crash. And then we saw it come back and boom over the next 2 years. What it says here is, so that headline says foreclosures surge 181% to the highest level since March 2020. It's designed to say foreclosures. Start looking at this. Some 8 months after a nationwide moratorium on foreclosures expired, foreclosure filings soared to the highest level since the pandemic began. So listen, the highest level since the pandemic began. Last month, 33,333 properties across the U.S. faced foreclosure, 181% jump from March 2021, and 29% pop from February, according to a report by foreclosure tracker Adam. So remember that, Adam data. We're going to look at that in a second. The first quarter saw 78,000 properties, a 39% increase over the quarter and 132% increase from last year. What they're saying basically is we have a ton more foreclosures than we had earlier in the year. Why is that? Why do we have a lot more foreclosures now than we had before? And they didn't say that they were up since pre-pandemic. They said since March 2020, the highest number that we've seen. So again, you see this headline, and the headline is designed to get clicks, to get eyeballs, to get you talking. And most people don't even read the article or look for the source data. Even the article is saying foreclosures are the place to look at for us as real estate investors. And for us, we want to buy houses at 50 cents on the dollar, 60 cents on the dollar. That's what we have to do as house flippers, wholesalers, and landlords. But let's come over here to the actual data. So if you look at this, I have the actual chart here that they use, the Adam data, US foreclosure starts, and this is exactly what they were looking at. So if you look here, and this is by quarter, if you look 2020 Q1, we've got almost 100,000 foreclosures. So about 80,000 foreclosures. Let's go back to when everybody was doing foreclosures in real estate. If you were in the game in 2009, 2010, 2011, short sales and foreclosures were it. Everybody was doing that. If you could learn short sales, you could negotiate great deals on properties. Look at the numbers that we saw then. When you want to compare, a lot of people are talking about, let's compare what's happening right now to the market crash that we had, and foreclosures keep coming up. This was a banking crisis, right? Mortgage crisis. And so that's what we saw, huge spike in foreclosures right here, 2008, and boom, Q1 2009, you saw a surge over 500,000 foreclosures. And then it kept going and started tailing off, right? So if you look here, about 550,000 at the peak, and then they start coming down. And then look at this. We've had pretty steady foreclosure at about 100,000, plus or minus 10 or 15,000 foreclosures for years, since basically 2016. And then what happened in 2020? Of course, foreclosures are going to increase. You could not foreclose when the pandemic hit. You couldn't. You couldn't even file for foreclosure. I had a house that I bought on, I bought it in my IRA. I owner financed it to somebody. They stopped paying. I tried to evict. I couldn't even get into court. Then when I finally got into court a year later, they have not been paying for a year and a half, almost 2 years now. When I finally got into court, they said you can't evict, and then I had to move to foreclosure. And so I am just now filing for foreclosure because I can. These numbers are like tiny, these foreclosures, and they start coming up. If you really look at this raw data, right, you've got somewhere around 500,000 foreclosures in Q1 of 2022. We're not even we're like half of where we were in March 2020 that they're talking about on this. The headlines are garbage. Foreclosures are not spiking. They're not even back to pre-pandemic level in Q1 of 2022. There's really nothing to talk about here other than the obvious, that foreclosures are increasing because now we can file for foreclosure. Until we start seeing spikes in foreclosure where they start talking about, let me compare this to pre-pandemic level, or let me compare it to 2010, 2011, or 2009 when foreclosures were spiking. Like, we are, if you look at this, it's 10 times less than what we saw in 2009 right now. 10 times less foreclosures. People that were killing into foreclosures before, if you think that's the next step for you, watch the data, okay? You got to look at the data, look at these numbers, look at these charts, and figure out what the best lead source is going to be for you. So maybe working pre-foreclosures or foreclosures makes sense on a very small level, but you're not going to blow up your business, do a ton of leads in foreclosure. The next video that I'm going to talk about on this topic is going to be the forbearance topic. So I remember when we got started, coming out of this pandemic, everybody's talking about forbearance is going to be the thing that we want to look for. That's going to happen. We're going to hit all these foreclosures because of forbearance. So what I want to do is we'll talk about this today, and then I'm going to compare the forbearance cycle with the foreclosure issues. We can kind of combine those two conversations to figure out, is this something that we should keep an eye on? And look, I was on the bandwagon maybe like a year and a half ago that forbearance is something to watch for sure. But if everybody's, going all in on forbearance and foreclosures, it's just not where it is right now, okay? You've got to find a bunch of leads, regular data that you can use to find off-market properties and negotiate directly with sellers to buy the houses at a discount so you can add and force appreciation and build equity to make money as a flipper and as a landlord and a wholesaler. This is really, based on the data, it's really all just clickbait, and I really want you to think for yourself. So when they point back to a chart, what I want you to do in these articles is go to that chart just like I did and tell your own story. Remember, I talked about being a test pilot before. We can take one piece of data, one number, one thing, and tell whatever story we want. So think for yourself. Figure out what's really going on and where you want to focus. So I would not put a ton of time right now into focusing on foreclosures, maybe in a very small scale, but I'm not going to grow and scale my business based on foreclosures right now in 2022. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with a friend, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.